57, participation in criminal street gang activity. How do you plead?
I plead guilty.
As to count 58, violation of the Georgia Controlled Substances Act. How do you plead?
Guilty.
As to count 59, violation of the Georgia Controlled Substances Act. How do you plead?
Guilty.
As to count 60, violation of the Georgia Controlled Substances Act. How do you plead?
Guilty.
As to count 61, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony. How do you plead?
Guilty.
And as to count 1, conspiracy to violate the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. How do you plead?
No law.
As to count 56, participation in criminal street gang activity under the leadership charge. How do you plead?
No law.
I think you didn't ask about count 62.
As to count, thank you, Your Honor. As to count 62, possession of a machine gun. How do you plead?
Guilty.
Are you pleading guilty to the offenses you have indicated because you are in fact guilty of these charges?
Yes.
All right. Are your guilty pleas and your NOLO pleas freely and voluntarily given with the full knowledge of the charges against you?
Yes.
Check it out, check it out, check it out. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit that post notification bell. Y'all already know the vibes, man. It's culture update. We got another major update in the culture today. As y'all can see, Young Thug just pled guilty, man. Today we gonna be right in the courtroom with it. And we about to play a couple clips of this breaking news. You know, we was all waiting to find out and see, like, dang, is Thug gonna have a mistrial? They gonna throw it out? Once I start seeing the co-defendants taking plea deals during the trial, I mean, it gets shaky. And you know, the DA was losing the case first and foremost, so she probably threw some crazy plea deals at them that they couldn't resist or refuse, knowing deep down inside they was guilty probably. I don't know. This is very shocking. Thug seems to plead guilty, but they getting into a whole slew of charges on him. So we're gonna jump into a couple of these clips. Enough of me chatting. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments, man. Let's go. Gang.
Asking the court to require or to forfeit, have defendant forfeit all the property that has been seized and that is currently being held, that was found or recovered, taken from his home after it was searched on May 9th.
Do you have any kind of list of what that property is? I mean, I'm not familiar with what was seized.
And Your Honor, we're not
agreeing.
Oh, I mean, I assume y'all aren't agreeing to anything.
We're not agreeing to
present it as a negotiated plea.
We're not, but we do have a list of the property items.
Do you have it available right now?
Yes, actually, would the court permit us to send it electronically? Because
sure,
Now, honestly, I really thought they was gonna come back with a mistrial verdict for the simple fact that this DA, man, she was all over the place with this case. She ain't have no solid evidence. They couldn't prove nothing. All of the testimony was fumbled because everybody talk about they lied, they ain't know nothing. But I guess Thug got tired of fighting. That man been in there 2.5 years at this point. And I think with the DA knowing she fumbled that case, she probably came with some sweet deals.
To adhere to the requirements, the sentencing requirements of the gang statute, which at least in part require that he not associate with any gang members whatsoever. And I can read the rest of that into the record if the court requires, or I can continue with the factual basis.
All right, and let me ask you, because I know that at least while y'all were negotiating, one of the things that I guess was being negotiated was some exception for, I think, somebody that is contractually obligated on his record label. Is that something that the state would still be in agreement to?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
All right. Your Honor, as part of the requirements of 1615 4,
Yes.
Defendant would, one moment, Your Honor. Under 1615.4, in addition to any other penalty provided by the code section, all sentences imposed under the code section shall require as a special condition of the sentence that the person sentenced shall not knowingly have...
Just a tad, because there's a court reporter taking it down. And when we start reading, we read really fast. So go ahead.
This code section shall require as a special condition of the sentence that the person sentenced shall not knowingly have contact of any kind or character with any other member or associate of a criminal street gang, shall not participate in any criminal gang activity, and in cases involving a victim, shall not knowingly have contact of any kind or character with any such victim or any member of any such victim's family or household. So that is, and we've listed in our indictment the victims of the crimes, the overt acts that have been committed, and under the basic conspiracy law, those are the victims that we are naming. Your Honor, as this case has been tried and would continue to be tried until the state completed its case in chief, the evidence has shown that the defendant, throughout the time between 2013 to 2022, conspired with both indicted and unindicted co-conspirators to participate in the enterprise known as Young Slime Life, or YSL, through a pattern of racketeering activity. Throughout that time, multiple conspirators, both indicted and unindicted, and including the defendant, have committed overt acts intended to further the enterprise itself. With regard to the defendant, as far back, the evidence has shown, as 2013, the defendant, along with other YSL founding members, Walter Murphy, for one, committed an aggravated assault and armed robbery against Derek Dotson. The court has heard evidence of that presented through Adrian Bean, who was a co-conspirator in that particular act. The armed robbery of an Archillian Bennett back in 2013. As alleged in the indictment, defendant and unindicted and indicted co-conspirators committed acts to further YSL that included drug sales, aggravated assault, and murder. They used and furthered, rather, this conspiracy by using social media posts and music to assert the violent nature of and the dominance of Young Slime Life, which is also known as YSL. The defendant is charged with being a leader of the gang YSL, and evidence has been presented by accomplices and co-founders of YSL, Trontavia Stevens and Walter Murphy, and evidence would have been presented, in the words of the defendant himself, that the defendant, as shown by some of his own social media postings, was the founder, one of the founders of YSL, along with Mr. Stevens and Mr. Murphy. YSL formed, according to the evidence that has come out in this trial, in 2012, 2013, under the former version of the name of the gang called Rock Crew, or Raised on Cleveland. Outside during shootings at Club Crucial to ensure Mr. Williams' safety, shootings at a place called the Dugout where armed individuals rushed to ensure Mr. Williams' safety, shootings at Mr. Kelvin Watts committed by members of YSL, communication with members of YSL after those incidents, and ultimately the murder of Donovan Thomas at the hands of members of YSL. The evidence has shown and will show that on January 10th of 2015, members of YSL drove a car rented by the defendant, a gray Infiniti, and drove past Mr. Thomas as he stood outside of a barber shop congregating with friends, and unloaded an array of bullets on Mr. Thomas, hitting him, his Chevrolet Tahoe, and 2 other persons in the process. Mr. Thomas died from those bullets. Phone records show that communication was held between Mr. Williams, Mr. Kelvin Treadwell, Mr. Demise McMullen, corroborating accomplice testimony that has been presented in this courtroom regarding what happened, who committed the murder, and what happened to the guns and the vehicles that were used in the murder. After the murder of Donovan Thomas Jr., the members of YSL responsible for the murder and members of YSL who were not responsible for the murder congregated at Mr. Williams' condominium called the Sky House, and they all made plans and later either drove or flew down to Miami. Prior factual acknowledgments by members of YSL